Well, this is the first, or technically the second because of Bloodborne, but I didn't scope this game out. I didn't check any Let's Plays or anything, so I'm going in this completely blind. I am not freaking pissed at this game. So far, anyway. There is some, unfair BS as usual from freaking FromSoft, but as far as first impressions go, it's pretty good. So, first off, I never played Elden Ring, I still won't. So you can imagine my surprise when I see that a Souls game finally has a normal jump button. After over a decade. Also, the map system is freaking normal. I recall in Elden Ring, that map expects you to mark key points. As if it was a game of the freaking 80s. I was surprised to see that early on, you can have 3 weapons equipped. And you're not over encumbered, you still have the good roll. The starting stamina is very generous. The tutorial boss fight, though, is BS. Because there are no players, there's an NPC. But once you die, that NPC doesn't come back. And said boss was that kind of scripted thing where you're supposed to die, but that next cutscene would have happened if you won. But this game is all about co-op, so that boss cannot be beaten one-on-one. Or with NPCs. Speaking of dying, not only do you lose XP, you lose a level. Which means you will be grinding your ass off in this game. Also in co-op, XP gains are kinda generous, but at the same time, it costs thousands just to level up once, level up your first stat. I still won't forgive that idea of losing a freaking level when you die. But at the same time, you can level up and get that level back pretty quickly. I'll skip that. At least I got to fight and beat that boss in this session here before getting to the first Night Lord. After freaking 4 hours, on to the classes. First off, it's annoying that 2 of them had to be unlocked, even though all the marketing showed off all the classes. And the Duchess, you need to get this freaking watch after beating that boss. You get that item, and then you gotta talk to her and give her said item. The other class, though, I don't know how to unlock her yet. And I wanted to use the Recluse, but FromSoft just had to make regaining FP complicated. In fact, doing these special abilities has just one problem. Other attacks being tied to the same buttons. In fact, here's how you're supposed to regain FP. You attack, then press L2 and triangle to activate this magic cocktail, right after the enemy is hit. But because of L2 also being tied to a heavy, you don't think you did that ability. So you have to see that animation to know that you've done it. And when figuring out these special abilities, I think you have to hold L2 and just tap triangle. Not press them at the same time, but I'm not sure. And FromSoft gets no excuse for this. It's been 15 years or so. Yet the way to do these special abilities is just poorly designed. And FromSoft screwed up how to double hand a weapon. Instead of just holding triangle like you usually do in past Souls games, you have to hold triangle and press R1. Why screw up something that's basically been programming our brains for over a decade now? Also, the first Night Lord boss, I admit, is cool. Cerberus with a chainsaw. Though it is annoying that the boss just keeps running all over the freaking place. I know Elden Ring introduced these huge areas. Well, technically the Dark Souls 3 DLC did that first. But yeah, it's just a huge open field for y'all to move around in. But that means the boss will be zipping around a bunch. And like I said, you'll have to grind your ass off because the boss takes so many hits. And not only do you have to grind for the Night Lord, you have to grind for the whole 3-day cycle. In the first 2 days, you basically fight mini bosses. Then there's the final one in day 3. And leveling up is a little bit of a pain because everyone's starting stats are crap. So you gotta stick with a class that can somewhat hit the hardest early on and not be slow, just have the damage and the speed. So before unlocking the Duchess, I stuck with the Executor. After some trial and error on some other classes, like I wanted to use the Wilder because he got a shield, but his ultimate art sucks because the bosses are moving, so you can't use that powerful punch, well, kinda. That onslaught stake, you can't use that and you certainly can't charge it. Tried using the Guardian. It was just slow. And that spear, it's not good when you're in the cave because the weapon hit deflects off the wall. Also, the dude has wings, but he can't fly. What the heck? At best, he only fly during his ultimate art. Which I'll admit, it's cool to have a boss attack. That's an attack the bosses usually use. And speaking of boss attacks, the Executor turning into a beast, having a freaking beast trigger. That is cool. And I guess I was able to aggro the boss. Just being in literal boss mode myself. And that beast trigger is what your Bloodborne character should have had. And one annoying thing about this boss, when Cerberus splits, you think they'd be weaker. But nope. So when it comes to the game, I can't give a full score yet. This game is lucky. It costs $40. There's going to be a lot of repetitiveness. Especially because you got to level up all over again every time you start a new expedition. But again, it costs $40, and co-op will certainly carry this game. And this game is certainly lucky I've played Monster Hunter before. Monster Hunter Worlds and its DLC. So I'm already used to this. And one more thing. I set this game to focus on the frame rate. Yet there are some frame rate issues. FromSoft really gotta stop that. Like, there's always a frame rate issue when it comes to them. And before anyone mentions the Demon's Souls remake, they didn't make that. Bluepoint did.